Captain Jack Fletcher was having what his grandfather would have called one of those days. The kind where your coffee maker shorts out, your ship's artificial gravity hiccups just as you're getting out of the shower, and then an unknown alien vessel appears out of nowhere and starts broadcasting incomprehensible threats in 17 different frequencies. I didn't even know the comms system could receive 17 frequencies simultaneously, Jack muttered, flicking a chunk of protein bar wrapper off the control panel. Hey computer, any chance you can translate whatever the hell they're saying? Processing, the ship's AI replied in that monotone voice that somehow managed to convey deep disappointment in Jack's life choices. Approximately, your vessel is claimed by the glorious expansion of the Viridian Collective. Prepare for boarding and cataloging. Jack sighed deeply and glanced at the contraband crates in the cargo hold monitor. Turns out smuggling Martian whiskey to the mining colonies wasn't going to be his biggest problem today. Great, first contact and I'm wearing my lucky underwear with the cartoon ducks on it. History's gonna love this. The alien ship grew larger on his view screen, a bizarre organic-looking craft with what appeared to be ceremonial spikes jutting out at impractical angles. Jack had seen enough sci-fi movies to recognize an intimidation display when he saw one. Computer, open a channel. Channel open. Hello Viridian. Folks. This is Captain Jack Fletcher of the independent freighter Second Chances. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just a delivery guy, and I'm pretty sure Earth hasn't had first contact with your collective yet. So maybe we could. The alien transmission cut him off with a series of whistles and clicks that somehow managed to sound condescending in any language. Translation. Silence. Primitive. Your feeble vessel is now property of the Viridian Collective. Resistance is. A bright purple beam shot out from the alien ship enveloping Jack's freighter in shimmering light. Oh come on, at least let me finish my protein bar before the anal probing starts. The last thing Jack saw before his ship's systems went dark was the alien vessel opening what looked suspiciously like a giant mechanical mouth to swallow his freighter whole. Definitely one of those days. Jack sighed, reaching for his emergency flask. If he was going to be the first human to meet aliens officially, he sure as hell wasn't doing it sober. Jack awoke with a splitting headache and the distinct feeling that someone had replaced his tongue with sandpaper during his unconsciousness. The room, if you could call it that, pulsed with an unsettling bioluminescent blue light. If this is heaven, the decor is a major disappointment. Jack groaned, attempting to sit up only to discover he was strapped to what resembled a combination dentist chair and medieval torture device. The specimen is conscious, announced a voice that sounded like someone gargling marbles while speaking through a kazoo. Jack squinted at the figure approaching him. It had 4 arms, bluish-gray skin that glistened like wet clay, and a head that tapered into 3 distinct points, each housing what appeared to be an eye. The alien wore what Jack could only describe as space bureaucrat attire, something between a military uniform and business casual for tentacle enthusiasts. I am Commander Krillix, chief xenobiologist of the glorious expansion. You will answer our questions, primitive mammal. Lovely to meet you too, Jack replied. I'm Captain Jack Fletcher, and I'd shake your whatever those appendages are called, but I'm a bit tied up at the moment. Get it? Tied up? The alien blinked its 3 eyes in an unsynchronized pattern that made Jack slightly nauseous. Your attempts at communication are noted but irrelevant. We have captured your vessel for study. You represent an unknown species from an uncharted sector. So you're saying Earth isn't on your Christmas card list yet. That's a relief. Another alien entered the room, this one shorter and stockier, with what looked like ceremonial scars etched into its skin. It carried a device that resembled a tablet crossed with a jellyfish. Commander Krillix, preliminary scans of the creature's vessel indicate primitive technology, consistent with early spacefaring species. The contraband substances in the cargo hold appear to be some form of neural inhibitor, possibly for ritualistic stupefaction. Jack winced. It's called whiskey, and it's for recreational stupefaction, thank you very much. Commander Krillix made a dismissive gesture with its upper right arm. Lieutenant Meztep, secure the specimen for comprehensive biological analysis. The collective will want detailed information on this new species before we decide whether to enslave or eliminate them. Whoa whoa whoa, Jack protested. Let's not jump straight to the enslave or eliminate menu. Can I suggest a third option? Something like politely return Jack to his ship with sincere apologies and maybe a fruit basket. Lieutenant Meztep approached, studying Jack with what might have been curiosity or indigestion. It was hard to read alien facial expressions. Commander, I've reviewed the data intercepted from the humans' communication systems. Their species designates their homeworld as a Class 3 planets with moderate to severe environmental hazards. This may indicate. It indicates nothing, Krillix interrupted. Look at this specimen, soft exterior, minimal protective features, obvious atmospheric dependencies, clearly evolved in a sheltered environment. Jack couldn't help but laugh. You guys really need to brush up on your research. Earth makes most species wet themselves just hearing about it. Both aliens turned to look at him, 3 eyes each blinking in confusion. Impossible, Krillix scoffed. Your physical parameters suggest a species adapted to comfort, not challenge. Jack smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. You know what they say, never judge a book by its cover, or a human by its whatever you're judging me by. Lieutenant Mestep shifted uncomfortably. Commander, perhaps we should consult the collective archives before proceeding. There are rumors about bipedal mammals from the spiral arm sector that— Silence. Commander Krillix snapped. Prepare the specimen for interrogation. The Viridian Collective fears nothing in this galaxy, especially not a hairless primate in ridiculous undergarments. They're duck-patterned and they're lucky, Jack muttered. And believe me, you're gonna need all the luck you can get. Jack found himself relocated to what he assumed was the alien equivalent of an interrogation room, though it resembled a cross between a spa and a meat locker. He was now seated on a gelatinous blob that occasionally pulsated under him, which he decided was either a chair or something's digestive tract. He preferred not to dwell on which. Commander Krillix paced back and forth, all 4 arms clasped behind its back in what Jack recognized as the universal posture of bureaucratic self-importance. Let us begin, human. The Viridian Collective has catalogued over 3,000 sentient species across 17 galactic sectors. We have subjugated the mighty Krax warriors of Epsilon Eridani, tamed the psychic leviathans of the Horsehead Nebula, and even established diplomatic relations with the gaseous hive minds of Betelgeuse. Impressive resume, Jack nodded. Do you have dental benefits? The commander ignored him. Your species, however, is unknown to us. This is unusual. Lieutenant Mestep stood nervously in the corner, continually glancing at his jellyfish tablet. Commander, I've been analyzing the data from the humans' vessel. Their entertainment broadcasts suggest a species with remarkable resilience, and not now, Lieutenant. Krillix snapped. I am conducting the interrogation. Jack leaned forward, ignoring the squelching sound from his chair. You know, for advanced conquerors of the galaxy, you guys seem pretty jumpy about little old me. I'm just a guy with a ship full of contraband and questionable life choices. Krillix's middle eye narrowed. You display a curious lack of fear, specimen. Most species tremble before the might of the Viridian Collective. I've worked customer service on Mars during the terraform riots. Jack shrugged. My fear threshold is pretty high. Perhaps we have not made our power sufficiently clear. Krillix hissed, leaning uncomfortably close to Jack's face. The Viridian Collective has destroyed entire civilizations for failing to show proper deference. Neat, Jack replied, picking at his fingernails. Hey, do you guys have anything to eat around here? Preferably something that won't try to eat me back. Lieutenant Mestep made a strangled sound that might have been alarm. Commander, the human's vital signs should be elevated in our presence. Instead, they indicate he is bored. Krillix slammed a tentacled appendage onto the gelatinous table. Enough, human, you will tell us about Earth's defenses, governmental structure, and military capabilities. Now, Jack pretended to consider this. Well, our primary defense is being really far away from anything interesting. Our government is basically a bunch of monkeys in expensive suits throwing feces at each other, and our military— he paused dramatically. Let's just say we've spent most of our history fighting ourselves, and we got really good at it. Lieutenant Mestep's eyes widened. Fighting themselves, Commander, that aligns with the ancient warnings about silence. Krillix barked, but Jack caught a flicker of uncertainty in its posture. Look, Jack sighed, I should warn you that humans have this annoying habit of not staying conquered. We're like cockroaches, except with nuclear weapons and a stubborn streak. You speak as though your primitive species could pose a threat to us. Krillix scoffed, but its upper left tentacle was now twitching noticeably. I'm just saying maybe we skip the whole enslave or eliminate thing and move straight to mutually beneficial trade agreements. I know a guy who makes fantastic whiskey on Mars. Lieutenant Mestep stepped forward, clutching the tablet nervously. Commander, I've found something in the archives. There's a classification for species from high gravity, high radiation, atmospherically unstable planets. They're called Deathworlders. Krillix dismissed this with a wave. Myths to frighten hatchlings. No such species could evolve intelligence. Jack smiled, slow and deliberate. What was Earth classified as again, Lieutenant? Class 3 with moderate to severe environmental hazards, wasn't it? All 6 alien eyes turned to him. You know, Jack continued casually, humans can survive losing significant portions of their bodies, regrow certain tissues, ingest substances that would kill most species, and we have this neat trick where we can keep going even when our bodies tell us to stop. We call it stubbornness. Some might call it evolutionary insanity. Krillix's confidence visibly wavered. You are attempting to intimidate us with falsehoods. Am I? Jack raised an eyebrow. Tell me, Commander, how many hearts do Viridians have? T3, Krillix replied automatically. Huh. We humans make do with just one, Jack said, tapping his chest. When it stops we die, so we've gotten really good at making sure nothing stops it, including smug aliens with fancy ships. Lieutenant Mestip was frantically scrolling through his tablet now. Commander, the archives explicitly warn against provoking Deathworld species. There's a case study from the Proxima sector that describes. I've heard enough, Krillix declared, backing away from Jack. Return the specimen to containment while we consult the collective overseer. As the aliens left, Jack called after them, just so you know, I'm getting kind of hungry. And you wouldn't like me when I'm hungry. The door sealed shut, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts and a plan beginning to form. Jack waited until the pulsating blue lights dimmed, which he assumed was the alien equivalent of night mode. After hours of examining his cell, he'd noticed something the Viridians had overlooked. Their biometric locks read thermal signatures, and humans ran hotter than they'd calibrated for. Time to test a theory, Jack muttered, pressing his palm against the cell's membrane-like door. After a moment of resistance, it squelched open with a sound like someone stepping on a wet sponge. Huh. Either I'm a genius, or security in this part of the galaxy is really terrible. He peeked into the corridor, which undulated with the same organic architecture as the rest of the ship. No guards in sight. Apparently, the Viridians were confident enough in their technology to forego basic security protocols, a mistake Jack had exploited countless times during his dishonorable discharge from Earth's Space Force. All right. Step 1, find my stuff. Step 2, find my ship. Step 3, get the hell out of here before they realize humans are basically walking space heaters. Jack moved cautiously through the corridors, noting how the ship seemed to react to his presence, lights brightening slightly, surfaces tensing as he passed. It felt less like a vessel, and more like being inside a living organism. Creepy but cool, he whispered to himself. After several wrong turns, Jack stumbled upon what appeared to be a storage area. Among various alien artifacts and equipment, he spotted his duffel bag, emergency flask now empty, rude, and his vintage leather jacket that had cost him 3 months' salary. Hello, beautiful, he grinned, slipping on the jacket. Now, where did they park my ship? A sudden alarm blared through the vessel, a sound like 1,000 kazoos being stepped on simultaneously. Attention all units, boomed a voice over what passed for an intercom system. The human specimen has escaped containment. Approach with caution. Do not engage physically. Well, that's flattering, Jack muttered, hastily grabbing what appeared to be a Viridian weapon, something between a taser and a turkey bastard. He heard the patter of what he assumed were alien feet approaching from both directions. Thinking quickly, Jack ducked into a narrow maintenance shaft that ran between the main corridors. The shaft was tight, forcing him to crawl on hands and knees. After about 50 meters, he emerged into what could only be the ship's equivalent of an engine room. A massive chamber housing a pulsating crystalline structure suspended in some kind of liquid. Pretty, Jack remarked. But not my ship. 3 Viridian engineers turned simultaneously, their eye stalks quivering in what Jack interpreted as shock. Hi there, Jack waved casually. Just doing a routine inspection. Everything looks glowy, carry on. Before they could respond, Jack bolted through another exit, finding himself in what appeared to be a cafeteria. Several Viridians froze mid-meal, food appendages halfway to their intake orifices. Don't mind me, just passing through. Food looks delicious, by the way. Is that still alive? The chase was officially on. Jack sprinted through corridors, occasionally pausing to taunt his pursuers, who seemed increasingly bewildered by his endurance. Commander Krillix, he heard Lieutenant Mestep's panicked voice over the intercom. The human has traversed 17 sectors without rest. It should be physiologically impossible. Deploy the hemolaser field. Krillix commanded. Its cardiovascular system cannot possibly withstand. Actually, Jack called out, spotting a camera-like organ on the wall. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can literally run most animals to death. Marathon running is a hobby for us. He turned a corner, and found himself face to face with a security team of 6 Viridians, each holding what looked like glorified fly swatters. End of the line, Deathworlder, growled the lead security officer. Jack assessed the situation, noted the corridor behind him filling with more Viridians, and did the only reasonable thing. He stopped running. The aliens, clearly expecting him to charge or fight, looked confused by his sudden compliance. Why don't you run? Demanded the security leader, brandishing its fly swatter menacingly. Jack smiled, leaning casually against the wall. Why would I chase you twice? The Viridians exchanged bewildered glances. You see, Jack continued conversationally, I've been mapping the ship while you chased me, and I just passed the hangar bay for the third time. He pointed to a massive door behind the security team. That's where my ship is. I could have left any time, but I was curious to see how long you guys could keep up. Lieutenant Mestep pushed through the crowd, breathing heavily. It's a bluff, Commander. No species could navigate our biomorphic architecture without. Deck 7, Section 12, Hangar Bay 3, Docking Cradle 9, Jack interrupted. My ship's the one you've got hooked up to that weird purple proboscis thing. You're downloading my computer files, but joke's on you. Half of it is just Space Cat videos. The collective gasp told Jack he'd hit the mark. Commander Krillex finally appeared, all three eyes wide with disbelief. How did you? What are you? Jack straightened up, suddenly serious. I think it's time we had a proper conversation, Commander. One that doesn't involve me being strapped to furniture or chased through hallways. He gestured to his surrounding captors. Unless you'd prefer I continue demonstrating why humans might be worth talking to rather than conquering. Jack found himself in what appeared to be the Viridian equivalent of a conference room, though to him it looked more like the inside of a whale that had swallowed an IKEA showroom. The walls pulsed with that same bioluminescent blue, and what passed for furniture seemed to grow directly from the floor, organic protrusions shaped into approximations of chairs and tables. Commander Krillex sat across from him, flanked by Lieutenant Mestep and three other high-ranking Viridians, whose titles Jack couldn't pronounce without risking a throat injury. Gone was the commander's earlier arrogance, replaced by a wary fascination that made Jack feel like a bomb that might detonate at any moment. So Jack began, propping his boots on the table and enjoying how the surface recoiled slightly at his touch. I believe we were discussing why enslaving or eliminating humanity might be the worst idea since unsliced bread. Explain this reference, demanded an elderly Viridian, whose skin had faded to a pale lavender. What is the significance of bread division technology? Jack sighed. Never mind. Cultural reference. The point is, you folks clearly don't know what you're dealing with when it comes to humans. Commander Krillex's tentacles twitched nervously. Our preliminary research during your unconventional tour of our vessel has been most illuminating. Your species' historical database suggests a level of conflict that appears excessive even by evolutionary standards. Oh, you've just scratched the surface. Jack chuckled, reaching for his recovered flask before remembering it was empty. Humanity's greatest achievement isn't space travel or digital technology, or even those little plastic things that keep pizza boxes from squishing against the cheese. Our greatest achievement is surviving ourselves. Lieutenant Mestep projected a holographic display showing Earth's history of warfare. Your species has engaged in continuous armed conflict throughout your recorded history. Over the past 5 centuries alone, you've developed increasingly efficient methods of mass destruction, many of which you've used against yourselves. It's a hobby. Jack shrugged. Some species collect stamps. This is no joking matter, hissed the elderly Viridian. Grand Strategist Vexilor has analyzed your historical data. Your primitive planet contains at least 14 different extinction-level threat categories that your species simply lives with. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Tuesday on Earth, basically. Commander Krillex leaned forward. Your oceans contain predators that could devour Viridian young whole. Your lands host microscopic organisms that cause systemic biological failure. Your atmosphere periodically generates electrical discharges and cyclonic wind patterns that destroy entire settlements. Your planetary crust spontaneously ruptures, causing massive structural damage. Your dominant species yourselves regularly engages in organized killing of its own kind, and yet we thrive. Jack finished for him. Look, here's what you need to understand about humans. Earth isn't just some rock we happen to live on, it's the crucible that forged us. Everything on our planet has been trying to kill us since we crawled out of the primordial soup, and instead of dying we just got really good at surviving. Lieutenant Mestep displayed another hologram, this one showing human physiological data. Commander, their species can survive massive trauma that would terminate most sentient life. They can continue functioning with extensive blood loss, damaged organs, fractured skeletal structures, and severe environmental stressors. Not to brag, Jack interjected, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a gnarly scar, but I once hiked 15 kilometers with a broken femur and a concussion after my shuttle crashed in the Martian outback. Doctors said it was impossible. I told them impossibility is just a fancy word for hasn't been done yet. The Viridians exchanged alarmed glances. There's more, continued Mestep, his voice trembling slightly. Their entertainment broadcasts suggest they routinely engage in recreational activities with significant injury potential. They intentionally jump from high places with fabric to slow their descent. They slide down frozen water on narrow planks. They willingly enter enclosures with aggressive megafauna for purposes of, he paused, checking his translation, rodeo competition. Jack couldn't help but laugh at the horror spreading across the alien faces. Wait until you hear about extreme ironing. Commander Krillix's coloration had shifted to a sickly gray. Most disturbing of all is their response to threat. When fearful or endangered, most species flee. Humans appear to have an alternative response pattern where they advance toward the danger. We call it fight or flight, Jack explained. Some of us prefer the fight option. This is evolutionarily unsound, protested the grand strategist. No species should willingly engage with superior threats. Jack leaned forward, suddenly serious. That's humanity's secret weapon, you see. We don't accept limitations, we see something bigger and stronger than us, and instead of accepting our place in the food chain, we invent spears, then guns, then nuclear weapons. We're an upstart species with a chip on our shoulder and too much creativity for our own good. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. And here's the kicker, Jack continued, his voice low and intense. Everything I've told you about humans, that's just the baseline, the average. Our outliers are even more terrifying. We have humans who climb mountains without safety equipment for fun, humans who dive to crushing depths with nothing but a tank of air, humans who set themselves on fire for entertainment. Our history is full of individuals who accomplished the impossible simply because no one told them they couldn't, or because someone did tell them they couldn't, and they took it as a challenge. Lieutenant Mestep was frantically inputting data into his tablet. Commander, I've cross-referenced this information with our xenobiological threat assessments. Humans qualify as a Class 9 evolutionary anomaly, a death-world apex species with technological capability and distributed intelligence. The collective protocols for such encounters are explicit, immediate disengagement and diplomatic overture. Commander Krillix's three eyes blinked in rapid succession, but they're so physically unimpressive. No natural armor, no venom delivery system, limited sensory capacity. We don't need them, Jack said with a predatory smile that made the Viridians instinctively recoil. We built tools instead. When we couldn't run fast enough, we domesticated animals that could. When we couldn't fly, we built machines that could. When we couldn't survive in space, we created artificial environments to take with us. Every limitation nature gave us, we engineered our way around. The elderly Viridian spoke up, voice quavering. The ancient texts speak of such species. The Forerunners encountered one, 7 million cycles ago. They described them as soft exteriors concealing unyielding resolve and the only predators who hunt with their minds. The Forerunner Empire fell shortly after contact. A profound silence descended upon the room, broken only by the ambient pulsing of the ship's organic systems. Jack could almost see the calculations running behind the aliens' eyes, the risk assessments, the strategic implications, the dawning realization that they had inadvertently captured not a primitive specimen, but a representative of perhaps the most dangerous species they had ever encountered. Finally, Commander Krillix spoke, voice carefully modulated to project calm authority despite the obvious tension in its posture. Captain Fletcher, it appears the Viridian Collective must re-evaluate its approach to your species. Perhaps we might discuss terms for a more mutually beneficial relationship. Jack smiled, removing his boots from the table and sitting up straight. Now you're talking my language, Commander, and I think you'll find humans can be quite reasonable when approached with respect rather than restraints. We make better friends than enemies, just ask the bacteria that live in our guts. A symbiotic relationship rather than conquest, mused Lieutenant Mestep, clearly relieved at the possibility of avoiding conflict. Exactly, Jack nodded. Though fair warning, we drive a hard bargain. We've had thousands of years of practice negotiating with each other, and if you think I'm stubborn, wait until you meet our diplomats. The grand strategist leaned forward, and if we were to refuse these negotiations? Jack's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made the temperature in the room seem to drop several degrees. Well, he said softly, then humanity would learn about your existence under less than ideal circumstances. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this unfortunate habit of not staying conquered. The Viridian Collective would eventually discover what so many species on Earth learned the hard way. When cornered, humans don't just fight back. We escalate. Every time. Commander Krillix raised all four hands in a placating gesture. That will not be necessary, Captain Fletcher. The Viridian Collective values efficiency above all else, and conflict with humanity would clearly be inefficient. Jack relaxed, his easy smile returning. Glad we understand each other. Now about that trade agreement. I wasn't kidding about the Martian whiskey. It'll knock all three of your eye stalks sideways. 3 standard galactic days later, Captain Jack Fletcher stood on the observation deck of the Viridian diplomatic vessel Prudent Reconsideration, watching Earth grow larger in the viewscreen. The irony of the hastily renamed ship, formerly the Glorious Expansion, wasn't lost on him. Your homeworld appears so peaceful from this distance, Commander Krillix remarked, all three eyes fixed on the blue-green planet. It is difficult to reconcile this serene orb with the evolutionary crucible you described. Looks can be deceiving, Jack replied. Just last week we had 3 hurricanes, an earthquake, and a reality show about competitive cheese sculpting. Lieutenant Mestep, who had been appointed official human cultural liaison, looked up from his tablet. I have prepared the preliminary trade agreement as discussed. The Viridian Collective offers advanced propulsion technology, medical sciences, and access to the Galactic Commons in exchange for exclusive distribution rights to Martian whiskey and something called streaming services. Netflix and chill across the galaxy, Jack grinned. Humanity's true gift to the stars. The grand strategist Vexlor, who had insisted on accompanying the mission, harumphed skeptically. I still maintain that we should approach with extreme caution. The human concept of reality television alone suggests a species with deeply concerning psychological tendencies. You're not wrong, Jack admitted. But consider the alternative, trying to conquer a planet where the dominant species invented parkour and competitive eating. The diplomatic contingent shuddered collectively. As Earth's continents became visible through swirling cloud patterns, Jack felt an unexpected surge of pride. Humanity would soon join the galactic community, not as conquered subjects or specimens for study, but as equals, perhaps even as the slightly unnerving cousin no one wanted to anger at the family reunion. There is one thing I still don't understand, Captain Fletcher, Commander Krillix said, its voice lowered to what passed for a Viridian whisper. During your escape, you claimed you could have left at any time, yet you chose to remain aboard our vessel. Why? Jack smiled. 2 reasons. First, I needed to make sure Earth wouldn't be blindsided by first contact with the Viridian Collective. Second, he paused, looking slightly embarrassed. My ship's autopilot was locked, and I couldn't remember the override code. Krillix's eye stalks drooped in disbelief. You're saying your entire negotiation strategy, your demonstration of human tenacity, your implied threats of retaliation, all of it was because you couldn't operate your own vessel. Improvisation is another human specialty, Jack shrugged. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you've got. Lieutenant Mestep made a sound that might have been a laugh or a respiratory malfunction. So when you said why would I chase you twice, you were actually completely bluffing, Jack finished with a grin. I had no idea where my ship was. I was just hoping you'd panic enough to stop chasing me. The grand strategist's color shifted to a deep blue that Jack had learned indicated profound consternation. This is disturbing. Your species navigates interstellar diplomacy through improvised falsehoods. We call it winging it, Jack said. And if you think that's bad, wait until you meet our politicians. As the ship began its descent toward the predetermined landing site, a remote area in the American Southwest that Jack had assured them was perfect for discreet first contact and conveniently close to his favorite taco truck, Commander Krillix turned to face him fully. Captain Fletcher, despite your unorthodox methods, you have secured for your species a favorable position within the galactic community. The Viridian Collective extends official recognition to Earth as a sovereign and protected death world. No species under our protection will attempt conquest or interference. Jack nodded appreciatively. And in return, we promise not to freak out your entire collective with our weird human ways. Too much. As the ship's landing sequence initiated, Jack touched the empty flask in his pocket, a reminder of how this whole adventure had started. From dishonorably discharged smuggler to humanity's first interstellar diplomat in the span of a week. Not bad for a guy in cartoon duck underwear. By the way, he said casually as they prepared to disembark, I should probably warn you about something called social medias before we meet Earth's leaders. Once humans find out about aliens, things are going to get interesting. Lieutenant Mestep's tablet pinged with an alert. Commander, I'm detecting thousands of primitive communication devices activating in our vicinity. It appears news of our arrival has already spread. Jack checked his recovered phone, which was now exploding with notifications. #aliens are coming is trending worldwide. So much for the discreet approach. Well, he sighed, putting on his most diplomatic smile as the landing ramp descended to reveal a crowd of humans with phones raised. Welcome to Earth, where nothing stays secret and everyone has an opinion. Consider this your first lesson in human culture, We're nosy as hell, and we love to share. Commander Krillix's eye stalks drooped in resignation. Perhaps we should have chosen elimination after all. Too late now, Jack grinned, stepping forward to make history. The internet has you already. Trust me, resistance is futile.